session is about taking you from 0 to a hero in 75 minutes. And this is all about desktop deployment. How do we deploy Windows 7 and Office 2010? We're going to walk you through what I want to hold up here, a desktop proof of concept kit. You can come to the Office Pavilion. We have tons of them. I'd love to send you home with these. We're going to show you how you can take this content, get back to your company, and get started with your deployment. A little about who I am. I'm Brian Shires, a product manager in the Microsoft Office platform team, and my co-presenter.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Richard Smith. I'm a principal consultant with Microsoft Consulting Services based in the UK, and my specialism is around anything deployment, client and server.
All right, so let's get started. This session is going to be lots of demo. We're going to walk you through what this kit can do and what you're going to be able to do with it. We'll save time at the end for questions, but if you have a clarification question, don't be afraid to speak up. So the first thing we want to do is get started with a deployment. We want to, we're going to go through the entire process, but of course, deploying Windows and Office takes some time to process. So we're going to swap over, and Richard's going to go ahead and kick off our initial deployment.
Okay, so on the screen here, we've got a Windows XP machine. This is a machine that's being used by a user. We've got some data on the desktop. We've got a document and a PowerPoint presentation. We've got some documents and music and stuff that the user would usually have. And the user's also got a whole bunch of settings, a whole bunch of state that we want to transfer across from Windows XP to Windows 7. One of the things we do with Windows 7 is always we do a clean install of Windows 7. So it's a case of lifting the settings and the data off the old operating system and then re-implementing them in the new operating system. So that's what I'm going to kick off here. I'm going to kick off a rebuild of this workstation, this XP workstation, as a Windows 7 and Office 2010 based device. So I'm going to run a program from the server that we've got set up here, that runs an application called Microsoft Deployment Toolkit. This is a solution accelerator that's available for download. We've set it up on the kit, on the DVD that you can get, and it's all configured to rebuild this machine in a fully automated and completely hands-off kind of way. So I'm going to go ahead and run the script that will start the deployment on this user's server, on this user's desktop. And that's going to connect back to our server, and it's going to run a bunch of scripts that we've got on the MDT server. Now, we've configured this to ask a bunch of questions through a set of wizards. One of the things that MDT does is it collects data about the device and about the environment, and also it can ask the user for settings, for information as part of the deployment process. So we've kept the wizards in place so that we can show you what it looks like. Otherwise, it would just be something starting, and that's not a very good demo. So we're going to walk very quickly through the tasks, the deployment wizards here. So we're going to deploy this particular image to this machine. This is a task sequence with Windows 7, Office 2010, and User State Migration Toolkit configured to do all of the heavy lifting, the installation, and the movement of the user's state. I'm going to do a refresh of this computer, which means the tasks in the task sequence will lift off user settings and user state, and then put them back again into Windows 7 when the operating system's been deployed. I'm going to give this computer a name. We'll call it, it's now going to be called Win7, right? Because we're going to change the name of it as part of the installation process. We want to join a domain. You can see we've pre-populated here some of the information already in the wizard. This is a file within the MDT environment that we can pre-configure the answers to the questions that the wizard asks. And we'll show you that a little bit later when we get into the MDT environment. So we're going to join this domain called Win7POC. And then it asks us, do we want to automatically determine the location of the backup? One of the new features of USMT 4.0, which is the toolkit that we supply in the POC kit, is that you can do something called a hard link migration, where all of the user state and data is kept locally on the disk. The old operating systems and applications are wiped around the data. The new operating system is laid on, the applications are installed, and then all the user estate is put back into the right locations. And what that means is it's a very rapid migration process. We're not copying stuff to a server and then copying it back down again. So it's very, very quick and a very automated process. So we're going to let MDT determine where the best possible place is to do that. We've also input some language packs. These are Office language packs that can be deployed on top of the operating system, and the user can choose which language pack they want to install. We've got some preferences around the language, the locale and time zone and keyboard settings, and also the time zone. And then we've got a bunch of applications that we can install as well. By ticking the boxes, we can select to install these applications or not, as the case may be.
Install them all. Please.
We'll install them.
Install them all.
We'll install them all. And then finally, we've even got an option to ask the user or technician if they want to enable BitLocker on this machine. And tasks in the task sequence will take care of turning on BitLocker and encrypting the disk for us. So we've got a summary page that gives us details of all the settings that we've chosen, and then we'll click Begin. And there's really not a lot to see now. As the process starts, you can see the task sequence will kick off. We will start the process of building the machine. First thing it's doing is capturing the user state, the user information from the XP environment, storing that locally on the disk. And then we'll pick this up a bit later as we come towards the end of the build, and we'll see what that looks like.
All right, thanks. So we wanted to kick that off so we're showing you the end state. But one thing I wanted to leave you with is, what did we just start with? We started right out of the box. We took the POC kit, which is a one deployment server with lots of content to help you get started. We're able to drop that in, connect our XP client, and get running right away. So if you have people asking you, hey, I want to take a look at Windows 7 running Office 2010, you can take this kit, take your XP machine, take its files, and get it migrated to 2010. Now, what does the kit provide? In addition to that is execution guides. So the stuff we're going to go through in today's session for you, we'll walk you through how do I actually get to this end state. So we're not just going to give you the final product. It's great, I can start there, but we're also going to show you what's the secret sauce of how we created this thing. So lots of execution guides, detailed, almost hands-on lab, like explaining, here's what we've done, here's why we're doing it. So we have all the deployment tools ready for you to use, all the products that are ready to run, so Windows 7, Office 2010, Visio, Project, Silverlight, IE, it's all in here, ready to go. So we're giving you one package, all the bits are ready to go. One deployment dashboard. We'll use this dashboard as a way to keep track of what's going on in this deployment, and it also will help you rationalize what's going on in the overall deployment process. So you'll get to see that as we go through. We'll use that as a way to drive this entire session. Obviously, it's one big deployment server. That's what the VHD provides. Again, it's free. Come get it from us. You can download it off TechNet as well. And it's up to you what you want to, how you want to use this and how many clients you can deploy with it. So with this, we're going to drill into the deployment server itself. So we'll kick off and give a little bit more explanation about what the POC kit is itself. So I want to initially start with the dashboard that I mentioned. So when I fire up the POC kit, the first thing that's set up to run is the Visio dashboard that we've created. So this is taking advantage of the solution capabilities of Visio. So we started off with a basic flowchart, like, hey, what are the things we want to do? Well, we want to show you how to do system assessment. We want to deal with application compatibility. We want to talk about how we're going to manage and how we're going to build our image. What we've done, though, is that's fine and dandy to have a static chart. What we've done in this chart is actually linked us to the tools, linked us to the tasks we're going to do. So we've already kicked off this deployment down here in light touch deployment. So this is what we started. I'm going to come up and refresh this quickly. If I can scan here. So we'll do a quick refresh. And what it's doing is actually looking at the activity on the server. You can see we have various things going on right now. So user state capture is already completed. So you can see here, I hover over that and see there's a success for Win 7. This is the machine name that he's used. We're in the process of deploying Windows, and we'll continue on installing the apps here shortly. So we're going to jump in and take a look at the ACT. So we're going to jump in, start with the application compatibility section.
So it's worth just pointing out before we start the tools that when you put this DVD into your server or workstation or wherever you want to set the POC kit up, this is the screen you're going to get. You're going to walk through the wizards. You're going to have access to the documentation. It's going to set the server up for you. It's going to take the 2 DVDs that are in the kit. It's going to merge them into a single VHD for you to mount. You can mount it in Hyper-V. You could use it as a bootable VHD attached to a Windows 7 workstation. It expands out into quite a large VHD, so you need to make sure you've got the space on your device to cover the size of the VHD when it expands and it's been booted into. But it's going to give you this HTA that launches from the disk is going to give you access to the whole set of instructions you need for setting up the POC kit and all of the documentation, as well as some other guides and information around justifying the upgrade and looking at some of the tools that we've also included in the kit. So deployment is a very wide gambit of tools and technologies. Right, at a very basic level, you can do some basic deployment with tools like Windows Deployment Services built into the server product 2008 R2. And then you get right up to the sort of big end of deployment, which is the System-Centered Configuration Manager end, where you are doing zero touch and all sorts of automation techniques, and lots of places in between. So what we've tried to do with this kit is give you everything, right? Give you everything from small-scale deployments using WDS, using Microsoft Deployment Toolkit, as we've done in the first part of the demo. And also, we've put Config Manager, System-Centered Configuration Manager, on the server, so you can actually move to zero-touch if you want to. So the process we really want you to think about is creating an image, a custom image, maybe with Office in, maybe with Office out, and then deploying that image using one of the tools that we provide, either MDT 2010 or System-Centered Configuration Manager 2007. So that's really where the kit is aimed at, and just wanted to show you this dashboard that launches when you put the DVD in to help you set up the environment. So as Brian mentioned, the dashboard is a thing that launches on the server when you've set the server up, and it's going to walk you through the processes. Right? We wanted to make sure, as I mentioned before, deployment is a large set of tools and technologies. So we wanted to give you some kind of process around this. So initially, when I work on projects with customers, we will start by doing some kind of discovery phase where we are using the toolkits, application compatibility toolkit, Microsoft assessment and planning toolkit. Some of the toolkits that are provided by Office, the Office Migration Planning Manager, the Office Code Compatibility Inspector, and the Office Environment Assessment Tool. So we're using this sort of pack of 5 or 6 tools to gather information about the customer's environment. What applications are they running? Are they going to work with Windows 7? What files do they have in Office? Do they have any macros in those Office files? Do they have any code that is going to cause a problem when they're opened on Office 2010? So this Visio diagram is really there to try and help you walk through that flow process of the tools that you need to use and the order that you probably should be using them in. So one of the toolkits that we've installed as part of the kit is the Microsoft Assessment, the Microsoft Compatibility Toolkit, or ACT as it's known. So ACT is a toolkit that you can use to go out and get quite detailed information about applications that are running on a user's machine. So just a quick show of hands, anybody used ACT in any kind of anger? So a few people. This is a great tool to set up in a customer environment or your own environment where you need to manage the applications, both the discovery of applications that you have running and also the fixing and the remediation of those applications. It's a single sort of tool for finding out about apps and going through the process of fixing and remediating them. So ACT is a tool that allows us to collect information from users' devices, and the way that we do that is ACT allows us to create what's called a collection package. The collection package is engineered by you through the toolkit, and you create this package. We give it a name. So you might actually do this on a department-by-department basis, and you might have a collector package for each department in your organization. And we're going to look for information about deploying a new operating system. We want the collection to start as soon as possible, and we want the collector to run for a number of days, and you can choose how many days this runs for. The way that the collector works is, once we finish in this wizard, an MSI will be created for us, which we can then deploy to a bunch of users in the marketing department. And the collector will sit on their device, their Windows XP device, and it will analyze the applications that they're using, the applications that they have installed, and the websites that they're going to from their desktop environment. And it will create log files of that information that are then shipped back to the ACT server. On a regular basis, those log files are then incorporated into the ACT database, and you can report then on the information that those users' machines have on their devices. It's a very precise way of finding out the applications that a user is using, and the applications that the user has installed, the applications that the user uses the most, and the websites that they visit, because we're also interested in application compatibility from the perspective of Internet Explorer 6 to Internet Explorer 8 or 9. So having that information collected is good for us from the perspective of being able to analyze that information. We tell the collector where we want the collector to ship the logs back to. So where on our server will it put the logs? And I can also label the collector so that when it does create the logs on the user's device, it will use a tag inside the log. So when they're shipped back into the database, I can query the database on a tag-by-tag basis. So I can query for all the marketing data or the sales data or the finance data. So when I've configured my collector, I can save this off. And we've created, in the kit, we've created a location for this to be saved into. So on the C drive, we'll save this into the ACT packages folder, and we'll call it marketing. And you can see it's an MSI. And we'll click save. And that's creating that package for me. So it's just a case now of deploying that to the marketing people or the marketing XP machines, and letting that run for a period of time, feed the data back to the ACT database. Once the data comes back in, I can start to analyze it and look at the data that's being fed back. One of the really cool things about the ACT tool is we can also use it to get information from a community site on the internet where other customers and ISVs, software developers, have put information about how to fix their applications. So one of the things we found very early is lots of people were fixing all the same apps, right? So we set up this community-based place where you could feed your ACT data into, and therefore you can then synchronize that ACT data back down to your version of ACT, and you'll find information about how other people and other software companies have remediated the software that you've got in your environment. So it's quite a cool tool to start the process of looking for application information. So hopefully that, if I've saved it into the right place, if we go back and we do a refresh, you can see the Visio diagram is updated. We've got a little green tick box on the configure application discovery box, and then we can sort of move on to the next stage of the process. We're not going to go through all the tools that we have available in the kit. The documentation will help you discover what's in there and how to use them, but I just want to highlight the sort of 3 or 4 tools that are available to you to do the application discovery, the Office file discovery, and the Internet Explorer discovery. Those are the 3 sort of big areas of application compatibility that we're looking for during a desktop migration project.
All right. Now let's turn our attention to Office compatibility. So in the same way that I need to think about what are the applications that are running on the OS, what are my IE applications, We have a similar challenge or a similar thing we really need to consider and plan for in the Office space, and that comes around Office files. How am I going to ensure that consistency of files if I'm moving from Office 2003 to 2010? How do I make sure OpenXML transition is going to go smoothly for me? In addition to that, we also need to consider solutions in the form of add-ins, so VSTO add-ins, or interoperable solutions that maybe an ERP system is using Excel as a front end. So the kit's going to lead us through those tools. So if we jump down here, there's a couple tools we're going to highlight today. The first is the Office Migration Planning Manager. This tool will help us discover what files exist in my environment and give me an initial readout of their probability for potential issues. Now, I want to surface this or set the expectation here. Don't just take this tool and try to scan every file, try to discover every file in your environment. We want to do some targeted scanning, targeted discovery, because if you will find that, yes, I have a lot of files, we need to be smart about how we do that. The first thing we're going to do there, speak with the business units, understand the business units, make sure we're going after the right selection, and do a kind of a statistical sampling. We want to go after, say, 20% and get an understanding of what's going on in the enterprise. So let's look at how we can use this tool to actually do those discoveries. So OMPM is really a suite of tools. So it has capabilities to do discovery, has capabilities to do automated conversion, and it actually has a remediation for one of the features called in-document version, so version extraction tool. What we're going to focus in on the discovery piece. So I'm going to use this, and the first thing I need to do is actually have a database created. Like ACT, we're going to send out a scanner, a collector agent concept, and we're going to go collect information from PCs. I want to find out the files that are out there. Obviously, I need a repository for this information. So I'm going to go ahead and, the tool's loaded on here. I just had not yet created a database. I've already have SQL Server set up ready to take this. So I'm going to just tell it the database I want to create. See if I can type today. So we just go ahead and kick off the script to go ahead and create that database. So very quickly, we have our OMPM reporting database stood up. That's great. We'll come back and we'll use that as a repository to collect our results. The next thing I want to do is actually back to the point of I need to determine what I want to scan. And there's a couple of ways. One, it's who do I push the scanner to? But it's also what are the paths I want to scan to? What are the types of things I want to scan for? So what I just clicked on here is a quick view of the Office Scanner INI or the Office Scanner configuration file. This controls what the scanner actually looks for. So the first thing here is I get to have a run ID, so I can quickly identify. Oh, it was different organizations. So I get a unique identifier. We can see this and filter on this later. So maybe we'll call this Tech Ed 2011, so we can find it later. Important thing here to note is destination path. Again, this is where the scanner will actually put its results files. So it's going to log its information back, and we'll be able to report on this. Now we get to control, what are you going to scan? Are you going to scan redirected My Documents desktop? I can control, if I'm doing a deep scan, I can do a quick, lightweight scan that just gives me the meta information about here's the scope of the files we have out there, the types of files. Deep scan actually says, go ahead and crack that file open and look at the elements within and look for functional changes, object model changes. We get to control how we log this information. Other thing I want to call out, a couple new features. Has anybody used this tool? This tool's been around since Office 2007. Has anybody used the tool in the past? No? Okay. One of the new features in the tool is the ability to do bulk macro scanning. So in addition to looking for binary to OpenXML format changes, we can also say, hey, I want to understand not only does it have embedded VBA, but I want to understand, does that VBA contain references to object models that we know we've changed from version to version? So I can use this. We've set this to scan. And what it's going to do is it's going to crack open the VBA code, run through, and actually get a count. Hey, there's X number of potential changes in the actual VBA code. Same thing for 64-bit compatibility. A couple things we can do here. We're going to define where it's going to scan. So again, I'm going to do just a very basic thing, and I'm going to just have it scan the local computer. I can also set this up to scan network shares. I can also have it scan SharePoint locations. So I can do the WebDAV path. I can come in and do SharePoint libraries as well. We can do things about excluding where we're going to scan. So I don't want to scan temp. I don't want to scan program files. So you can use environment variables. Other important piece here is, what are the file types we're going to scan? So you can see we're looking at Access, Excel, Word, PowerPoint. So I guess you control the file types we actually look at. So I'm just going to save this quickly. Now we're ready to, I'll go ahead and refresh just so we can get a reminder of where we're at in the flow. We now want to execute this. So this is the part where I'm going to distribute it out to my machine. So I would simply go to, so we can jump over for just a moment here. Looks like we're still deploying. We have a Windows 7 machine now, so we can come back to that in a bit. I'm going to connect to another XP machine we have in our environment. And for the distribution of this, all I need to think about doing in a production environment, you definitely want to use automation to get these files out. But for explanation point here today, we're going to show you what am I going to take, what am I going to move out to my machine to allow the scan to run. So I've gone back to the POC server, and I have a scan folder. So the things I really need are the elements in this folder. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to simply copy this over. So you can imagine a simple script to do this, or deployment package for SCCM.
So Brian, why do we use, why is it all command line driven? What's the purpose of that? Why would we do that?
Yeah, why do we have just command lines? This allows you to do these scripted deployments. This way, it's very simple. I can go drop this and create a custom script to deploy this. I can put this as a deployment package. Very scriptable, easy for me to control, easy for me to configure, so I can see how I can actually do this in a broad production environment.
So I think we appreciate that you may not have things like Config Manager or MDT available in your environment. You may have other deployment tools that can quite happily run command lines and scripts, and therefore having it in this kind of format allows you the flexibility to deliver the scanner, deliver the tools you need to do the scan, even the MSI that I created in the previous demo, by whichever platform you have available to do the management and deployment of your clients.
So again, scripting, kick this off very easily. I just kick off offscan exe. There's a couple switches on this. One I want everybody to be aware of. There's a /D command. One of the things you'll want to consider is, do you care if you actually change the last access date on your files? /D is an element, additional switch we can give to say, you know what, I am going to open the file and access it, but we can use the scanner tool to put that date back so we won't change and make suddenly all of the files look like they've just been accessed. But for today, we're just going to go ahead and kick off this scan. And again, this is kicking off the scan local on its XP machine. While this is, go ahead.
Sorry, Brian. I was going to say, you could probably imagine this running from a login script, right? So you could write a script that copies the files that are needed to the local user's device, have the scan run, and then have a command that cleans up the scan directory and gets rid of it, all as part of a user login script or some kind of other way to deliver that to the user's device.
Exactly. So now that scan's running, I've come back to the POC server, and remember in the configuration file we said, hey, where do we put the scan files? Right now it's writing those files over here. So it initially is writing the XML files. We're going to package those back up as one single cab for us to make it easier for us to manage. To make this a more interesting example, we have some sample scans we've actually pre-created for you to give a realistic view of a network scan if you don't have multiple computers with lots of data to scan. So I'm just going to move this over into scan data as well. Okay, so this has happened. I've gone out and scanned my environment through script, or maybe it's an email, just, hey, click on this link. We want to start some assessments. So the next phase is, okay, that's great. We have several scans done. We actually need to import those. Again, command line, you can actually automate this whole process. You can set this up on a server, on a daily batch, just a scheduled task, come in and import these results, and it kind of leads to a automated reporting system. So all I need to do is we provide a script, a batch file to import these scan results. So import scans, and again I tell it the database server we're connecting to.
And the instance of the database that we want to use.
Give it the database name, and now I just need to say, hey, where are those scan files at? So we're in OMPM scan data. And very timely, it just finished my scan here, so we can go and import those results in. So it'll quickly take those results in, and you see what's going on. We're extracting those cab results out using the SQL XML components, populating our database. That's should be done here in just a second. Great. We're ready to go. Now let's actually do some reporting on this. We provide an out-of-the-box access interface to the report. So I'm going to just go into the OMPM reports folder. Again, it's going to ask me, hey, what are we connecting to? So we get to remind it that it's POC server instance, and OMPM will connect to that database. You have three basic views that we provide you out of the box. I'll talk a little bit more about what these views do and how you go beyond this. So first thing is let's look at what we actually scanned, a quick review of what we've scanned. So you remember I typed in the ability to do different targeted scanning, so I can quickly see, hey, this is the scan we did, number of errors we found, number of files. So you can quickly come in and get a quick readout of the different scans we've actually completed. The most used view is this Office 2010 compatibility. So go ahead and launch this up. Multiple views in here, ability to filter, so I can see the computer summary, so you can see different computers we've provided. XP2 is the one we just scanned. So let's go ahead and filter down to that run. I can apply that. Now we're getting down to relevant information. I can come in and find different types of error types. Hey, there's what are all the ones that have charts? If I'm moving from binary to OpenXML, we changed the charting engine from 2003 to 2010. So you should be aware they won't break, but they're going to have a slight display differences. I'm going to kick Richard off there. So I can easily come in and drill in and apply these filters, take a look at these, and I actually can see those scanned files. Turns out there's only one of them that we actually have here. I can drill in on that particular file. As you can see, for the different types of issues, you get these detailed reports. Again, I want people to walk away with, don't go discover the whole world, and just because we have a file with some kind of injury here doesn't mean I have to go remediate it. You want to go through a rationalization phase next. But this is the way we go discovering and get our initial work list. We also made mention before with the ability to do macro identification. So we have a specified macro view here. And here it found the files that actually have VBA code. And the two columns is going to call out quickly. Functionality issue count. So these are the references in that VBA code where it touches some object model reference that we know we've changed somehow. So these are the files you're going to want to go take a look at. And similarly, if you're trying to move to 64-bit Office, if your macros will need to be updated if they're making Windows API calls. And so we're actually getting an account of those. And there's a partner tool called the OCCI, or the Office Code Compatibility Inspector, which drills down and they say, okay, this is me as IT pro saying, hey, here's what we need to go fix. OCCI tool gives the ability of that developer to go in. It's loaded here in this kit as well. Drill into that, open that file up, and actually have a look at the VBA code, and it'll show highlight the lines in the code where these changes actually exist. So I'm going to go ahead and exit out of here. One last thing on the Office compatibility space is, that's great. We've talked about files. The other thing you want to think about is Office solutions, so add-ins and interoperable solutions. So there's a tool called the Office Environment Assessment Tool. I won't, for today, so we had a lot to cover in this kit, but calling out, it's loaded in here. This tool is targeted at those solutions. How do I find out what add-ins are running? Do I have business units that have went out and purchased a special legal document or contract management add-in IT might not even know about? This is a tool that I can use to quickly go out and scan those environments. So again, I can build up a customized package here. I can just run the wizard quickly. I get to say, do I want to do a passive scan? Passive scanning means we can actually leave it running like ACT does and watch for calls that are going on from external applications. So my ERP or CRM system is calling Excel XE, hey, we actually get to know about this, and we can build up a configuration. I just tell it where I want to log this information back to. So I'm going to just configure this quickly to go back to OE to logs location, so it's a network share that everybody can access. And again, this is all very scriptable. I push this thing out, and each user, we can target specific desktops, again, through logon scripts or through SCCM, whatever your software desktop management solution is. It's very scriptable and can fit into different types of environments. The net result of this, we won't go through the actual client scanning. We send back logs to that log file, and then we can compile those results back together. And what I get is a compilation in Excel here. Here's an example of what we get. We can see the number of computer scans, some information about those. The most important or the most useful thing that you're going to see out of this is, hey, here's the add-ins that were not shipped with Office. They're actually found on those client machines. And we're doing, first thing, we're getting a count. For all the computers we scanned, how many machines was it actually found on? So we found Outlook Backup Add-in, Mappy Lab, we found Zobni, we found all these things. The next column here, like ACT does as well, we have an online service where ISVs come in and say, hey, are we compatible? Is our version or our add-in compatible with 2010? And based on the version, we're doing a match. So some vendors have not added their stuff to the list, so we are going to do unknown. Partial match means it's probably in there, but maybe it's a different version. So there's go drill down. You may have to upgrade. We can take you to the information about that. So this is a quick view. Get that discovery of what those add-ins are, and if we know about it, we can tell you whether they exist.
So really, to summarize, in this section we've shown you a number of tools that come in the kit that are already configured and set up for you to start playing with and use. We've got the Microsoft Assessment and Planning Toolkit, which we haven't showed you in the demo, which is a tool that you can use to go out and inventory your devices, right? It will go out and scan without an agent or anything being installed on them. It will scan the clients and feed back to a database information about the hardware, the processor, the memory, the disk space, and it will give you a report as to whether those client machines are ready to run Windows 7. So it will tell you if there's deficiency in the video cards or it hasn't got enough memory. So that's one of the first tools we tend to run in customer environments. Then we moved on and we showed you the ACT tool for collecting data about the applications running on client machines. And then Brian showed you the Office tools that are available. The three Office tools are the Office Migration and Planning Manager for collecting information about the Office files that are out there in your environment, the Office Code Customization Inspector, which can look inside of VBA and code and give you an indication as to whether there's going to be an issue when they run in the new Office 2010 world, and also the environment assessment tool that Brian's just shown you for gathering information about Office add-ins and whether they will cause an issue. So these sort of 5 tools together make up our discovery toolkit, the tools that we can use to find information about the environment, about the machines, about the software, and about the Office files and add-ins and code that is already running out there.
Okay. So what I have up on the screen, just to also come back to what's the POC providing all those tools ready to run, but also the dashboard, help you lead you through like the suggested path of how do I think about using these all together and getting you to a complete assessment, complete discovery. So we get our little tick boxes. Yeah, we've carried those things out. So we kind of like a checkbox of that's the process I should walk through and getting things done. And we get little things here. And the same thing happens in ACT. We get to see, hey, we've actually scanned 12 computers. So it gives you a quick view of like if I'm doing my initial POC, help get you familiar with the tools and the process.
So the next part of the session is really about how you move on and talk about, once you've done your discovery, what do you need around image engineering and image deployment? How do you build a custom image for your environment and then deploy it to your client machines? So let's have a quick survey, a quick show of hands. How many of you in the audience have a single image that you deploy to your whole environment? A few guys at the back. 1 to 5 images. 5 to 10 images? More than 20 images? Sir, do you need a hug? You come and see us on the booth, we'll show you how. And we see a lot of customers running multiple images. And some of the reasons why you run multiple images are around because you need to support different hardware, because you have different application sets and driver sets. Maybe it's because you have different platforms. You have x86, x64, and combinations of such. So one of the things we attempt to do from a customer's perspective is help them to get to a single image. And sometimes that's not possible. Sometimes there's two. Sometimes there's an x86 image and an x64 image. But usually we try and drive towards a single image. With the features and the benefits that we've brought into Windows 7 and the deployment tools that we have available for deploying both Windows and Office, we can now move to a single image environment because Windows 7 can be installed onto a device and it can jig itself up based on the device that it finds itself onto. So if you remember back in the XP world where we had to add extra software if we wanted to install the image on a tablet PC, for example. Or we had to get around the HAL issue because we built the image on a single processor machine and we were deploying it to a multi-processor machine. So some of those issues we saw in XP have now disappeared. We can use a single image of Windows 7 and Windows 7 will adapt according to the device it's being placed onto. One of the other things we can do is we can do some dynamicness as part of the deployment process itself. So we can inject drivers into the image as it's being deployed based on the machine that the image is being deployed onto. So we can keep those drivers in a central repository and then have them called and installed as part of the deployment process. So again, that's another reason why we don't have to keep creating images or multiple images. We can have Windows 7 and Office re-languaged on the fly as it's being deployed. So we can change the language of the operating system and the applications as part of the deployment process. So again, we don't have to have different images for different languages. And we can install applications dynamically as well, application packages installed on top of the operating system. So why do we need a custom image? What are some of the reasons for having a custom image in your environment? Typically, we create a custom image to save time. So if you can imagine, a lot of customers ask me why we don't just deploy the vanilla version of Windows 7. Okay? And then we'll install some apps and we'll install some drivers and everything will be great because we don't have to create an image and we can save that time. Up until about 5 or 6 weeks ago, there were in the region of about 70 or 80 hot fixes for Windows 7 RTM. So when we released Windows 7, across the course of its life until we released SP1, there were a huge number of hot fixes, critical and security patches. Now, one of the things that caused was if you were building a new machine with the base image being RTM Windows 7, you then had to install all of those hot fixes on top, and that would take 40, 50, 60 minutes. So one of the reasons we tend to create a custom image is to put those hot fixes in and have a point-in-time image that we can deploy and save time on the deployment. We also see customers putting in sort of middleware into their image around things like Flash and Shockwave, C++ libraries, Silverlight, So there's about 12 or 15 common things that we tend to find in a custom image. Office is an interesting one, whether you put Office in the image or not, whether you install it as part of the image or whether you install it after the image has been deployed. Is really dependent on how much flexibility you want. There is a hybrid way that we can do it, which is install Office as a local installation source inside the image itself. And then we can reach into that local installation source and kick off the Office install from the local cache rather than copying a big Office package across the network. If you want some more information about that, you can come and see us on the stand and I'll go through it with you. So the tools that we give you in the toolkit are really around doing two kinds of deployment. The first is the Microsoft Deployment Toolkit. The Microsoft Deployment Toolkit is a brilliant piece of kit. We use it all of the time in all of our engagements for image engineering. It's a tool that allows us to consistently build an image in a customized way, knowing that every time we press the button, it's going to be an automated build and we're going to get the same image. So it's a really good tool, and within the POC kit, we've set up MDT for you to get straight on and build a custom image. The way that MDT works is you create a folder called a deployment share, and into that deployment share, through the interface of MDT, you stock it with your applications that you need in your image or you need to deploy, your operating systems, so this is just Windows 7 just directly imported into the MDT environment, any drivers that you want to add as part of the deployment, any language packs and hotfixes that you want to add as part of the deployment or the image engineering process, and then you create a task sequence which glues all of these things together. Now, I was mentioning throughout that you can use MDT for two things. You can use it as an image engineering platform. You can use it to automate the process of building a machine, sys-prepping it, and then capturing it as a WIM file that then can be deployed to multiple machines. And that's where I use MDT quite a lot for doing that custom image engineering piece. But MDT is also a deployment platform. You can bring your image back into MDT and use MDT to deploy it to a bunch of machines, right? So that's what we did in the first part of the session today when we kicked off the install on the Windows XP machine. MDT was acting as a deployment server, deploying our image to that machine and running a set of automated tasks to automate that process. The third way that you can use MDT is to integrate it into System Center Configuration Manager. And the two tools come together to allow you to do something called zero touch, which means that you can schedule the deployment of clients in a way that means that somebody doesn't have to be there. The difference between using MDT on its own as a deployment platform and using it integrated with Config Manager or System Center Configuration Manager is that when you use MDT on its own, somebody has to be there to start the deployment. So I had to be in front of the XP machine to start the script that kicked off the deployment that we started earlier. Whereas when you integrate it with Config Manager, you can schedule that. You can schedule the build. Nobody has to be at the device to start the build process. That's why we call it zero touch. So MDT is a very important tool in the sort of kit, in the tool bag of things that we can use to do both image engineering and image deployment. And I would say if you're an organization of, say, maybe 500 to 1,000 users and you don't have a deployment platform, then actually MDT as a deployment server, as a deployment infrastructure, is something you should probably look at as a way to automate your desktop building. So let's very quickly show you the task sequence that we're running at the moment on the XP machine. So this is a built-in MDT task sequence that ships as part of the product. It's got all of the settings, there's tasks already pre-configured for you. And we've added a few of our own as part of the POC kit. So if I walk through these very quickly, we do some gathering of information about the machine. We want to make sure that we know about how much processor, how much memory, how much disk it has, what network is it on. If we gather this information, we can make other decisions later in the task sequence based on that information. So we might have a task in the task sequence that does something based on something we found out about that machine. A common one may be that we know which default gateway the machine has received from DHCP, and therefore we can estimate which location that machine is in based on its default gateway, and then we can run a group of tasks to do some location-based changes and change that machine. We want to validate that we've got enough memory, we've got enough processor power to run the task sequence, so that's done very early. And then we're into the state capture tasks here, and we are running a refresh on the XP machine. So the first thing we check does that machine run BitLocker, because we may actually be doing a refresh from Windows 7 to Windows 7. Okay, so if it's running BitLocker, we want to disable the protectors so that we can migrate the data. Then we're going to restart the computer, and then we're going to do, if told to, we can do a full backup of the device. So we can take a full backup of the Windows XP machine into a WIM format and store that on the server in case we need to get it back to the state it was in before we started to rebuild it. I see this being used for VIP computers, exec computers, where we want to take a full backup of their device before we actually then go through the process of wiping it and putting Windows 7 on it. So the question is, how long does that take? And it's really based on how big the machine is, how much data is on the hard drive, what you're backing it up to. Typically, that will be across the network to a server, how fast the server I/O is, and then how fast the server network card is. So there's a number of variables in there, but it typically takes, for a Windows XP machine, it could take an hour to 90 minutes, depending on the size of the data. But you do get a full backup of the machine in a WIM format that you can mount and extract data from, or you can use to put back onto the machine and bring it back to its original state. So it's not something we use for all users, but it's something you can use for a subset of your sort of VIPs, your execs, your important users. As we go through the task sequence, we're going to install the operating system. Now, this could be the vanilla Windows 7 operating system, or it can be a custom WIM that you've created with MDT and then imported back into MDT for distribution. So it can be either one of those. As we go through the task sequence, then we're injecting any drivers, additional drivers that we need that are not in the box with Windows 7. So this is a great feature. You can go off to the HP website or the Dell website, pull down the drivers that you need, add them to MDT, and as part of the deployment process, as the image is being deployed, we will get the drivers we require from this sort of driver library and bring them down and install them as part of the installation. So it saves a lot of time. You don't have to go through this process of hacking your images about and adding drivers and creating new images because you need new driver packages. We can store them centrally and have them available at deployment time. There are some drivers that you will want to put into your image, okay? And they fall into two categories. Typically, they are storage drivers and network drivers, or what we refer to as critical boot drivers. Without being able to connect to the network, you can't run the process or the task sequence, and without being able to talk to the disk, you can't write anything to it. So those two sets of drivers are quite critical. So we can add those to the image and make sure they're there when the image starts. You can also see we've added a bunch of custom installation tasks. So we're installing Office 2010. We're installing the AppV client. Because one of the things we also give you in the kit is a virtualized version of Office 2010 that will run from AppV. So you can play with it both as a full, rich install client, and you can play with it as a virtualized version of Office that's delivered as an AppV package. And we're also installing Visio. And then we'll go through and finish off. If we've ticked it in the wizard, we'll enable BitLocker, and then we'll restore any user data and user settings. So that's the basic geology of the task sequence as it runs. All of the folders that you have in the distribution share are fully configured to allow you to import applications, so import source into the MDT environment. All of the applications are typically set up within this folder, and we import the source into MDT. We give it details of what command to run to silently install the application, and any dependencies that this application may have. So you may say to the task sequence that you install the application A, but it relies on application B being installed first, and the task sequence will take care of making sure they're installed in the correct order. I can create a new application very easily by running through a wizard, and the wizard will walk you through, tell me where the source is, and I'll import it into MDT, tell me what the command line is that you want to use to install it, and then the application is configured. Once the applications have been configured in this folder, it's very easy to add them to the task sequence. We just go into the task sequence itself, and we've got a drop-down up here to add the tasks to the task sequence. So in the general section, I have a task called install application, and I can install a single application from here, and then I can just browse to the applications that I've staged within MDT and select them. And that will then add that application to my task sequence to allow it to be installed. Now, you saw at the beginning of the presentation, when we walked through kicking off the XP rebuild, there was a wizard that asked me if I wanted to install any applications, and I could tick the box for Silverlight and some other applications that I had available. It's this application here, this task sequence app here, that takes care of installing any selected apps. So when I tick the boxes, that information is stored in an XML file, and this task will take care of installing any of those user selected applications that I ticked in the tick box. Again, with the operating systems, we can go down and we have very easy right-click, import an operating system, and again, a wizard will take care of importing the operating systems in and setting that up for me. Same with drivers. And probably a top tip here is to try and separate out as much as possible in MDT your drivers, because they'll apply to different, it's a good way to manage them. They'll apply to different platforms. You can see here we've used the format of x86 drivers and x64 drivers, and then we've separated into manufacturer-based folders as well. So here are some Toshiba drivers. And it's just a case, really, again, of right-clicking on the folder, choosing import, pointing it at the folder where you've downloaded the drivers to from the website, and then it will import them in, and then you can see the information about the driver itself, the plug-and-play IDs that this driver is allocated to. The final thing to show you in MDT is around the deployment share itself. And I mentioned earlier that we'd set it up to show you all of the wizards that you can select. If you're doing image engineering with MDT, you probably don't want to see those wizards. You probably just want the task sequence to run automatically with a preset set of configuration settings. This file within MDT is called the customsettings.ini file, and it allows you to control the automation of the task sequence, and also whether you want to have a technician or a user prompted for the wizards that pop up and the information that you want them to add. You can imagine in a image engineering environment, you don't want to see the wizards, but actually if you were in a deployment environment where you are building machines, you actually might want some of the wizards to appear to change some of the variables that are available to you. So you may want a user or a technician to be able to select the keyboard, the locale, the time zone information up front using the wizards. So it's very, very flexible in what we can do. But the kit that we've provided and the walkthroughs and the guidance and the labs that are on the DVD will help you walk through all of this stuff, set up MDT as both an image engineering and an image deployment factory. Okay.
What about customizing Office?
Well, customizing Office is a very good question, Brian. I'm glad you asked me that. From the MDT world, one of the things we've done is pull in the applications. One of the applications we've set up is Office 2010. So when we did the import applications and we told it where the source was, We set that application up for you with a trial version of Office 2010. But one of the things you'll notice in the application in MDT is you not only get the normal 3 tabs that I showed you earlier with the application, you get a 4th Office tab. And the Office tab allows us to configure how Office is automated from an installation perspective. If you've been to the workshop that we ran yesterday, or you're coming to the workshop that we're running this afternoon, we'll talk about the 2 files that are used to automate the installation of Office 2010. They're a config.xml file and an MSP file that's generated by the Office customization tool. And MDT, because it's recognized that we've imported an Office product, gives us this Office product tab. And from that, we can choose to use setup.exe with an MSP file. And it also gives us access to running the Office customization tool to enable us to create that MSP file. So within the Office customization tool, I can go through and I can select my organizational name, where I want Office to be installed from. I can even go right into every setting within the Office environment and configure what's available to the user when Office is installed. The output of this tool is an MSP file that we can save in a specific location within the Office source, a folder called Updates, and Office will use that as a file to automate the Office installation. If we just want some very basic Office automation and installation, then we can use the config.xml file. And we can use these tick boxes to configure the XML file that's used for the basic installation of Office. So when I click Apply here, the other button we have on this screen is to go and take a look at that config.xml file. And the MDT tool will build that file for you based on the settings that you tick in the tick box. So if you remember that the config.xml file is a basic automation file for installing Office, the MSP file is a more intense, more customizable way of installing Office. And if you want to install languages, you have to use both of them. You have to use the MSP file and the config.xml file. But MDT is taking care of that for us in terms of helping us create those files, put them in the right places to allow Office just to install in a fully automated manner.
In the kit itself, we've added a fully customized MSP file. So we went in and set some settings, and the kit will walk you through what we've actually done there. And when we hit our deploy client, you'll get to see some of the customizations we were able to carry out.
So it's probably a good time to take a look at our client. See where we're at. It's always a good sign when you see a white summary screen at the end of the deployment process. That means everything was fine. There were no errors. There were no issues. We have a rather fetching yellow background in this window if there were some errors, and a rather fetching salmon pink/red background if something catastrophic went wrong. So we can see here that we've actually got the. See if we can do this full screen for you. So we've got the finished product. We've finished the process. We can see that the environment has been built. I think the last task in the task sequence is probably to reboot it so that we've got a clean environment to work in.
So we can, while that's rebooting, we can come back to the POC server and give you a view of what you can get to see in the dashboard as well. So we can keep tabs on this if you're doing a handful of machines in a lab environment, kind of a nice way to keep tabs on what's going on and see, well, yes, indeed, we got ourselves deployed. And what you can actually do is you hover over these, and it's going to show you which machines have actually completed. So if one machine actually has a failure or is still in process, you can just hover over and get a quick view of what each of those machines are.
So the key thing we really want you to use this kit for is to set it up in a lab, to learn how to use the discovery tools, the deployment tools, the Office deployment tools, to deploy some machines that you can start playing with from a client perspective, that you can start opening Office documents on, that you can start going to websites within your organization, that you can start running applications that you use as mission-critical apps on the devices that you build, so that you can start the process of testing and identifying where the issues are going to be for you guys when you are rolling out Windows 7 and Office 2010. And also we need to link into that the rolling out of Internet Explorer 8 or Internet Explorer 9, because that's part of the package as well. So here we have our client. Brian's kindly logged back in for me. Everything's been transferred across. All of our user state has been migrated, so we've got our shortcuts on the desktop here. We've got our data. It's running Windows 7. We've got a bunch of applications that were installed as part of the task sequence. So Office 2010 was installed fully.
I launched Word just as an example of some of the customizations that are very easy to see that we can carry out in here. Some of the stuff we've included in here. I can give you an example of customizations we can carry out. Oh, let's scroll up here. It's very simple things from changing UI, changing security things. So examples, we've saved this to say, rather than save to SharePoint, save to company portal, so it's more user-friendly. We've added a customized help tab here, so we've able to customize, send out custom ribbons, do all this very quickly, link it to interactive guides to help your users get started. So think of how do I package not only the image, but how do we, first time we're launching IE, so we can actually package together all the user adoption content in one nice format. So rolling that all together as you build your image to make sure that when the user gets a new image, they have not only new tools, but the guidance to help them get started. So lead them into what works well.
So that's the MSP part file that we've provided for you as part of the Office installation. The MSP file has this stuff in it to configure some of these settings, to add the extra ribbon toolbar with the help and the access to the ribbon support that the user may need as part of their testing and your testing process of this image. So the other thing we want to quickly show you, and not really to go into any detail, but on the server as well, when you set it up, we've talked a lot about using MDT, and that's a great tool for you to start your image engineering and your small-scale image deployment in your lab. But we've also installed and configured for you on the server System Center Configuration Manager 2007 R3. So the Config Manager server is configured, ready for you to start using as a zero-touch deployment platform if you want to start using it for that, for delivering to larger scale clients, to start looking at some of the inventory management you can do, the software delivery you can do, the desired configuration management that you can do, all the management tasks that wrap around delivering a desktop and delivering applications. You can start using that to see whether it will fit into your environment, and you can start to see how it will be used. You can use it to schedule deployments.
And at the same point there, in addition, we mentioned this before in MDT. You saw we give you a task sequence both for MSI or on the metal Office installation. We said we give you the pre-sequence Office 2010 package. It actually is DSC or Dynamic Suite Composition package. We have an add-on. The bits are included in there, and we show you how to do that both through MDT and then walk you through how to actually use SCM or SCCM as the virtual app streaming server.
Yeah, so we've set up the app streaming both as a standalone package that you can deploy with MDT, and also if you use System Center Configuration Manager, you can set up the streaming of applications from that environment down to your client. And both of the task sequence we provide have the AppV client installed, so you can start playing around with the virtualized version of Office immediately. You just build a machine, you distribute the virtualized application package that we've put in the kit, and then you can see how virtualization of Office works in your environment. So I think we're pretty much there in terms of demos, in terms of things we wanted to talk about. We've got about 6 minutes left. Are there any questions that people would like to put? You can either shout them out and I'll repeat them, or if you can come to the microphones, that would be great.
Hello?
Hello.
Yes.
Two questions. One, where is your booth?
Our booth is in the expo hall, and you look for the big yellow section. It's the Office and SharePoint section. We are pretty much on the outside of that section, so you should see us pretty straight away as you walk towards the yellow section of the expo area. I think we're near to aisle 1200 or 1300 or something like that.
And second question is, in practice, what does the deployment of third-party apps look like Silverlight, Flash, that kind of thing? I'm specifically thinking about, sort of install time options that you might want to set, like, tell Flash not to auto-update or something like that.
It's a very good question. That's why I tend to see a lot of those sort of things going to the image, because everybody gets the same settings, right? And with some of the tools that Adobe provides, particularly for Acrobat and Flash, you can engineer in a configuration file that will turn off the things you don't want to use. So very often I see Acrobat being configured internally, not to go out to acrobat.com, not to go out to some of the external update sites that are available, and turning off some of the functionality so it becomes a more corporately managed application. And that's fine, And we don't tend to see Acrobat being placed in the image, but Flash and Shockwave, Silverlight, they tend to be things that do get placed in the image. And it's just really whether you are going to change them on a regular basis, and therefore, if you don't put them in the image, but if you're going to standardize on a application set until the next time you create an image, then they're good candidates to go in. That sort of middleware application stuff, like Silverlight, like Flash, Shockwave, the things that are going to add functionality to the OS. Does that answer your question? Sort of. Come and see me at the booth if it doesn't. Hey.
Is this on? Okay, great. So the scan that you did on the Office documents for assessment for 2010, are you able to run that same scan on a file server?
Yes, so you can. I can run that against both client PCs. If you recall, I was in there changing folders to scan, and if I wanted to run I would do a different scan configuration, and I would actually go in and configure the network shares or SharePoint doc library. I can put that in there. Obviously, I wouldn't have every client computer kick that off, but I would actually kick that off. And an important note there is you want to kick off those network scans on that machine or very, very near, so we don't have a network latency, because we're actually cracking open every file, reading it. So there's quite a bit of heavy lifting going on there. Thanks.
Okay. Question? We got one on the right-hand side. The mic turned on, please. Hi. Thank you.
Over here. There we go. All right. During the Windows deployment wizard you ran at the beginning of this presentation on the XP machine, whenever you change the computer name, what does that do in Active Directory? If you have SCCM installed on that machine, will it break SCCM where you have to go out and clean out the SQL database?
It's an interesting question. You saw me change the computer name, right? So that's good. That machine will join the domain as a new object, right? Okay. In the domain, it will be a new computer. With Config Manager, what you could actually do is you can align an old computer name with a new computer name, or an old machine with a new machine. And especially if you're going to replace a device, where you are taking one machine off, you're lifting user data off an old machine, putting a new machine on the desk, and then rebuilding it Windows 7, and then asking Config Manager to put the state back again. You can associate machines within System Center Configuration Manager so that you manage that ongoing relationship in both Active Directory and System Center Configuration Manager.
Okay, thank you.
But I just changed the name because I just wanted it to be a new object in the AD. And that's also a good tip as well. If you are adding machines to AD as part of your POC, as part of your lab, if you're adding them to the real domain, your real production environment, please put them into an OU that doesn't have your group policies applied as a kind of lab OU, because we often see machines being built from the POC kit being placed into Active Directory, and then a whole heap of XP group policy being placed on the machine, and you don't see things that you would expect to see. So it's always best practice to join an Active Directory. If it's going to be in production, join Active Directory in an organizational unit or move the machine to an organizational unit that doesn't have all of the XP policy. And because you're probably going to look at your policy anyway and redevelop it for Windows 7. Okay, so top tip there. Any other questions?
Does MDT support the ability to synchronize computer description names with the Active Directory object description name?
So I'm looking at Mike in the front row to see whether MDT supports the ability to migrate the computer description name from AD, and my initial thought is it doesn't, because, yeah. So if we join the domain with the same computer name, it would continue to use the same computer object.
So that's just basically creating a new SID for that Active Directory object. If it's a brand new machine, you got to give it a brand new name.
Yeah.
So can you sync the local computer name?
Well, you probably could with some kind of ADSI scripting, but
Sure.
not from the client end.
Okay, yeah, that's
Yeah.
what I need to know. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions? Okay, guys. Well, thank you very much. We've got on the screen now some related content. We'll just point out that thank you very much.
Thank you.
We appreciate your applause. We've got a session this afternoon, a hands-on lab, instructor-led session that I'll be walking through some of these tools. So if you want to join us, please do.